New for 96. With your hosts, Kevin McCauley and Chris Nguyen.
On my end, with my connection, it was spot on.
This is terrible. We have a delay.
It's fine.
I don't know about that.
I really don't see how it's going to impact the quality.
Well, you can only make it better, more interesting.
Yeah.
The patina.
How are you today?
I am fine today. My drink is sweating severely. I'm not going to lie. I've already had 2 before the recording while waiting for you. Once again, Kevin has damaged more than one of my tables when I let the candle melt all the way down to the holder while waiting for him to appear. We were supposed to record yesterday, and Kevin was occupied with another call, and I had opened a meeting, like an online web meeting, and I was waiting there, and I was just like staring at myself through the meeting app, and Kevin didn't show up. So
I texted you eventually.
you said okay, or no, you said like, you said something very generic, like not like a 5 more minutes, more like a need more time.
Oh, that
whatever
is what
that
I
meant.
said. That is what I said, yeah.
You said something like that. At least me, even though I am perpetually late for everything, I will text you 5 minutes out every 15 minutes, so that you at least have some sense of expectation.
Yes.
Anyways, how are you?
I'm okay. It's been a while since we recorded.
We haven't recorded for
It's been like
2 weeks.
2.5 weeks.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
I have been outside a limited number of times in the last 2 weeks, so
Sure.
not a lot can happen.
No, I know. Nothing's happened.
Yeah, there was that giant spider in my house, which is the reason why I moved.
Yeah, you told me about that 3 times.
It was very large. It was large enough to mention 3 times.
How's your motivation these days? We're still dealing with COVID and quarantine.
We are, even though, like, I guess a good portion of the world is having their own moment in trying to declare the virus over. But as that goes...
You have to hear both sides.
Right. Yeah, still quarantined, going out. I'm going out and seeing people at a distance more often now, I think, like drive-bys, and driveway visits and whatnot. But not so much with the, making out and whatever else that you do with your friends.
Of course.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, I just feel a little unmotivated.
I just like that. So we are on Zoom right now, and your eyes are just darting across the room with alarming frequency.
Laura was like peeking into the room and closing the door.
Oh, I thought it was a cat again.
Yeah, that too. So
yeah,
we both sort of struggled to get this recording done. I think it's somehow, even though there's nothing to do, I feel like I have more time commitments, and I guess it's just a factor of having even worse time management, where it's like it just takes me forever to do so little, and then it's like, oh, it's 9 o'clock now.
Well, I mean, I look at the watch and I'm like, shit, I'm supposed to be upstairs. I'm late.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am getting a lot done, but time moves faster somehow when you have, like, the confines are your house. So I don't understand that. But I did design an entire house, speaking of houses, which you saw a preview of.
Yeah.
When you visited my sidewalk, and I showed you from a distance via my computer. So you saw like, you were looking at my 15-inch laptop from like 6 to 10 feet away.
Right.
So I don't know that you could actually see much, but we also could have also done that on Zoom so that you could have actually seen.
No,
what it
I
was,
could
but
see. I could see.
I guess it's
Yeah.
a house, you know. It's got
No,
a
it's
roof,
very
some
impressive.
walls.
Very, very cool.
Oh my god.
You were very excited about it, rightly.
I was very excited about
rightly, and you worked really hard on it, and it showed, and it was
I did.
impressive.
Because I found the story is that I found this lot, and I've been wanting to design and build a house that is automotive oriented without being like overbearing. Like it was designed by Binford Tools.
So you're gonna have old gas station signs.
Yep.
Oil barrel seats. You know,
oil barrel furniture. Considering they're paying me to take oil barrels right now,
yeah, exactly.
Why not capitalize?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. So maybe we can post like a snippet of this online. But basically,
a couch made from like the front clip of a Bel Air.
Yeah. How did you know?
The checkered
race car beds.
The checkered linoleum floor.
Yes,
checkered flag.
I've basically stolen it from the Ultimate Tool Time house.
Yeah.
Although here's the thing. So when I was a kid and watching Home Improvement, and whenever he does, like, they had like, you know, it was always like man related.
Yeah. Like the
bathroom.
man's bathroom, the man's kitchen,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And all of the modifications were predictably stupid.
It was really terrible, but I was always so excited. Like, those were some of my favorite episodes when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Just because they were like designing a space, and of course, inevitably, it was just like something stupid. It would just be like full of like exploding like toilets or something.
Oh, yeah. He really was like the Clarkson of his day. Where he would ruin something because it had too much power, and suddenly like the blender blows up his perfect man's kitchen because because it has 900 horsepower to a blender.
Yeah, that is kind of the take of the week. I'm going to declare it because I've never made that connection before.
I had not either.
But
I would have thought your favorite episode was when they have the band of construction workers that play like saws and hit things to beat drums.
They played Green Sleeves, and that was very moving.
Hey, show some respect. Those guys were Mumford and Sons.
Well, that just shows our level of sophistication here in the United States. That our Jeremy Clarkson is. I was going to call him Tim Taylor. Now I can't recall his real name.
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen.
Yeah.
Dear Lord. Who had, like, even though he was very American car oriented, had some kind of cool cars.
Not on the show. Never on the show.
Not on the show. No, they were always like hot rods, like you would see on Hot Rod magazine, the cover up.
Yeah, it's like, we're doing this royal blue tea bucket with the, this.
Yeah.
It was always,
even his.
It's like, he could have built anything he wanted. He always built something I was like, could not even be remotely interested in.
No, even his wife had a cooler car. She had an Austin Healey.
Oh yeah.
And Al, who married into money, had I think he had like a GTO, a Ferrari GTO or something like that.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to be all over the Internet Car Movie database after this.
Okay.
To look this up.
This will be confirmed because that was part of the storyline. Anyways, but in real life, all I remember is that he was known for having a Impala SS, which was period cool. And he had a Taurus show, which was featured in
the Santa Claus. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's all I know that he had. I'm sure he had other cars.
I think all those stupid cars on the show were like his cars.
I could see that.
I don't know.
Yes. The like 48 Fords, and I don't know why like that's a thing. Like, is a 48 Ford different from like a 47 Ford or?
Yeah, that was the whole
Ford?
thing. Is they were different like every year.
I guess that's true. Yeah, you're right.
So you might there would be one where the window line is cooler or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Do you ever get, like in your car, in your 1980 911 SC, do you ever get people who stop to talk to you about the car and they try to guess the year of the car?
All the time.
Hey,
all the time.
is that a 69?
Yeah.
Is that a 82 and a half?
All the time.
And there's nothing specific about any of those years, but for some reason, so people do that all the time with me, and they're like, oh, yeah, hey, what is that, a 98? It's an 86 Carrera, but I have to acknowledge them like, oh, clearly you are a man of knowledge, and I will subtly correct you.
Yeah,
that
you were within a decade almost. You get a gold star.
Yeah. I just wonder what the inclination is to assign like a year to, because I think people just do that in general when they're trying to talk about old cars. If they don't know anything about like the specifics of like an era or a specific platform or whatever, they'll just go for the year.
I think it's I think it's a good generic icebreaker. And then also maybe if he's gonna go home and tell his brother or something or his wife, like, oh, I saw an 86 Porsche today. You know, it's like you can take that piece of information and then when you retell the experience, if you do, I'm making a lot of assumptions here. If he were to recall the experience later, it's like, oh, yeah, that was an 86. So the next gas station he goes to, he sees a 97, he knows the difference.
Yeah. I think at the next time I may not correct them and just let him go home and tell a significant other that he did indeed see an 18 Duesenberg.
Yeah. And he's very wise because he guessed the exact year.
Yeah.
He could be wafting home on that self-satisfaction.
Hell yeah.
Of being right.
Amazing. We are not purveyors of truth here on this program. Yeah. So, speaking of this program, thanks for tuning into another episode of
New for 96.
96.
What were you trying to do? Were we trying to sync and that's as close as we got, or were you doing something different?
That was my best effort. So
that's all we can hope for.
It's all we can hope for. So we are recording, of course, remotely at our respective compounds in different cities because Kevin lives outside of the 610 Loop in Houston. Mm-hmm. And yeah, episode 53.
Wow.
Special edition.
Yeah.
Special episode. We have to have like a heartwarming episode one of these days where we learn a lesson.
Oh, yeah.
You especially.
Well, someone should learn something as a result of all
Someone
this.
should learn something.
Certainly not the listeners.
No, not at all.
Episode 53. It feels like a mere 3 weeks ago we were just on episode 52.
I know. Isn't that a funny thing?
Mm-hmm.
Also, when I said that I had 2 drinks earlier, I didn't mean that to frame that in a like I'm already drunk type of way, although I'm slightly buzzed.
Well, how else could you possibly frame that?
No, whatever. I was about to say like I'm half in the bag. What does that mean? Like, were people? Oh, I guess. Does it mean like a paper bag? Like you're halfway through your paper bag of alcohol?
Or maybe like people used to refer to their bed as their bag. So it's like I'm so drunk I'm halfway to bed, passed out.
Maybe.
And the bed
was
the bag.
Boy, you really shat the bag there.
Exactly.
I would think like if it had something to do with the paper bag that it would be better, or you'd be more drunk if you were all the way in the bag.
What is 3 sheets to the wind?
I don't know.
Is that the right number of sheets for the expression?
The 3rd sheet is when you're really gone.
Yeah.
But 2 sheets, you're okay.
1 sheet, you're recording a podcast.
You're recording a podcast, but by the end...
Oh, yeah.
4 sheets, baby. Don't you worry.
Yeah. If you rate us, please give us 4 sheets on iTunes.
That would be amazing.
We've earned it. I'm drinking wine today.
I saw
drinking
that.
red
That's
wine.
really weird. You're drinking it out of a mug, which is impressive.
No, it's a stemless wine glass.
Because
you
I
are
can't-
rephrasing a popular Jim Gaffigan joke, I believe.
I am unfamiliar.
Oh.
I just figured you didn't want to see how much you didn't want me to see how much you were drinking, so the mug hides everything. It's very clever,
Yeah, it is.
but less clever now that I know what your rationale is.
Yes.
Anyways,
Yeah. What do we got today?
Speaking of cars, I haven't driven much. Every once in a while, I'll go and start up the cars and like take it for a loop just to warm them up. But I haven't done that in over a week, except for the LX. How is your stable doing?
Well, I fixed the 911 last weekend.
Yep.
I replaced the blower
load bearing.
motor. Yeah, the blower motor. So I mean, it was in the garage for like 3 weeks. I could have plugged the battery back in and driven it without that, but it was all like the front. It was all taken apart and everything. So I didn't.
Now you have to reset the. It's very complicated to reset the quartz clock.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking in the manual about doing that. But yeah, I actually fixed something and it's good. So I drove it around Monday and stopped by your house after getting some coffee beans to take home, and then it's supposed to rain I think all weekend, so I probably won't drive it because it's clean.
Yeah, I wanted to go out as well, and my car is not only clean but the front trunk leaks, so I will definitely not be taking it out. I haven't had the carpet in it since the Hill Country Rally. I took it out to dry it because just moisture in the air had moistened the carpet, and I left it out. Now it's just out, so there's no absorbing pad.
Well,
it should get wet again.
I left all the carpet out also, and I forgot to put it back in. And I went to the grocery store, and I actually bought a full amount of groceries, and so I put a lot of it in the back seat, but I put a lot in the front trunk, just on top of the gas tank.
Yeah, well, that's fine. It's not toxic.
Mm-hmm. A completely full gas tank, by the way.
Yeah, well, the Scotch tape that acts as a gasket, I'm sure will keep all that.
Yeah.
The toxins in.
Yeah.
But I've never been able to fit much in the front trunk as far as useful groceries go. I will have to take all the La Croix out of the box in order to fit them. And that's about it. So, also, I don't trust the cleanliness of that carpet, as in, it looks very clean. So I have plush beige carpeting for the front trunk. But on the underside, the thatch portion of the fabric, or the matting on the underside, you can see years worth of staining that has not been, I guess, cleaned off. So the carpet part is cleaned off, but the matting has not been. So I don't ever put anything that I end up eating in the front trunk because I'm slightly afraid of what that food is absorbing when it's in the front trunk.
I'm sure it's fine.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. You sound like the worst kind of doctor. Just toxins. I'm sure you're fine.
Yeah, I think so. The Lexus is fine. I think I drove it a couple days ago for some reason. The clear coat is advanced deteriorating.
Oh no! It's accelerating.
It is,
even with the car cover.
Well, I'll take the car cover off and then it stays off. So I'll have the car cover on for a week and then I'll drive it and leave the car cover off and then it gets rained on and dirty and everything. So
yeah.
But yeah, I'll go out and I'll see condensation under part of the clear and I'm like, oh, this is some clear that is about to die. It's not good.
Have never seen that condensation under the clear.
Well, just near one of the tears. So on the car, there's 4 spots. There was 3 spots. Now there's 5 spots where clear coat is just peeling, and so it's this little crater, I guess, on the hood of clear coat. And so that all the edges around where it peeled, it'll be a hole in the clear coat, like a hole in the ozone layer. That's a more appropriate
Yeah, there you go.
analogy. The areas around that will get seepage underneath.
Oh,
And that's how
weird.
you know that another like 1 inch section of clear coat is about to fly off.
I mean, you might as well just let it all peel off, and then it'll be
Matte
consistent
silver.
at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frozen gray.
Frozen gray, if you will. I've always been afraid of that happening. My paint, the metallic portion of my paint is fine, but the plastic trim has like faded to matte on the LX 470, and it's just sitting out there. Although I guess it's no different if I'm using it; it's still outside. But I have no way. I don't know how to protect that. I mean, I'm probably just eventually going to have it repainted. But it seems kind of inevitable. And we've already talked about like the weird quality of paint that Toyota implemented during this era.
Yeah.
Like basically 2000 and 2006 or something is just not good.
Yeah. Don't look at the roof of any Corolla.
Yeah. Which is even worse because it's rusted. It's somehow
insane.
enhanced.
It's so bad.
Yeah. But the other day I did take the LX 470 out, and because traffic is a little bit lighter at certain times, I took it out in high mode because I'd never driven it when it's lifted. So it raises it about up to 2 inches, and you can only drive it, I think, like up to 18 miles an hour in high mode. Otherwise, it just drops back into normal. So I drove it all the way to Blacksmith, the nearby coffee shop, which is like maybe a mile away. No, it's like half a mile away, in high mode, just to get a sense of its off-road prowess, and it did just fine.
Great.
At 18 miles an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Apparently you can lock it in high mode through some sort of hack, but I feel like anytime you mess with adjustable suspension, it will it just accelerates its failure. Mm-hmm. But I don't know.
Yeah.
How is the Aviator? I happened to find in my feed the other day an advertisement.
Oh no. It's because we were talking about it.
I thought it was Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. So
but it was you.
There's one feature that I actually appreciate that is very unexpected, and it's like the electronic door release. It's the weirdest thing. Like when you open the door from the inside or the outside, it's like you push a button and it unlatches the door and kind of like pops it out. Which
like a door handle would do?
Kind of.
Like on a front trunk on a Porsche.
Yeah, like that. So getting in the car, it's stupid because you're pulling on this handle that doesn't actually pull. You're just like pushing a button on the underside of the, like phone handle type door handle. But
or the C7 Corvette.
Exactly. But from the inside, and I've driven Corvettes that have this, driven like the CTS Coupe that had this and stuff, but from the inside, I am appreciating now, like when you push a button on the door and then push the door out, like it is a nice seamless one motion. And you think about when you're in another car, I know this sounds like really like such a minor thing, but when you're in another car, you have to pull the handle and to unlatch it and then push so it's like a very like disjointed motion. And I know this is like such a small thing, but it makes a difference.
I will have to try this in your car because it's still two steps.
No, because from the inside, you are pushing a button with your thumb and you're pushing the door out. So you are never like pulling something and then pushing the exact same thing.
I have to I cannot imagine this.
It is just like a nice thing because it's like, oh, it's one range of motion instead of pulling a door handle and then.
Where's the button?
It's it's like where your thumb falls when you grab the door handle. Like when you grab the interior door handle to push out, it is like.
You mean like where your hand would fall if you were to say, like, pull on a lever.
Yeah, but you're using your thumb to push a button. You're not pulling. See, you're never pulling in the car. You are only pushing outward.
One mustn't pull.
No pulls.
It's a vulgar action. And as a reminder of the Aviator, Kevin, if you want to explain the context.
Oh, yeah. I have an Aviator for a while to take pictures of, but then because of COVID, the posting plan is a little bit postponed. So, TBD.
TBD.
Yeah.
It's a nice car.
It is. It's very comfortable. I
Yeah.
like the way it looks from many of the angles, and it's good color.
Yeah.
And it's red, metallic, and it's interesting. It's neat having like lots of luxuries and gadgets and CarPlay and all that.
Yeah. This feature that you're talking about, I wish like it had like elbow detection, because I use my elbow to push out the door of the car. I feel like.
Okay.
Or maybe I'm wrong. I actually have never thought about like how I open doors from the interior, but
this is like trust me. I know I sound crazy, and the first month and a half, I was never like, oh, I'm so excited to have this button to push the door out. But as I go back to driving my cars, I'm like, oh, I got to pull something and then completely change my motion and reverse it and then push the door out.
Can we address some things here related to demographics and issues that may arise?
Mm-hmm.
Advance your age like 40 years and the battery dies.
Okay.
How do you open the door?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm sure there's like a manual.
You're living in it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure there is a manual thing. Why not just have the manual thing?
Because this is easier. It really makes a difference.
I wish it had like elbow activation. Although I guess if you leaned on it, it would open. I don't know. I'm not a car engineer.
You are just trying to tell me I'm wrong. Like, you are nonsensical now, trying to find reasons why it's not actually a good feature.
Do you find, like, if you go back into a car with the to unlock, you have to double pull on the handle, interior handle, to get out of the car? Did you find that annoying now? That
I just told you I find it annoying to like pull a door handle and then push the door. It's a minor thing. It doesn't make a big difference, but it is like, it makes you realize that it is a like incongruous motion to do.
I guess I'm gonna have to try this out.
Okay.
I have to see. I'll be convinced.
All right.
Maybe.
Well, maybe when COVID's over.
Maybe. Okay. So what is the? Okay, let's take a step down from that. What is the most clever interior physical handle, like door release, that you have encountered?
Oh my God, I'll have to think about that. It's not something I think about very often. I will tell you one thing. This is like a little bit cheaty, I guess. But back like a year and a half ago, when Chris Perkins and we were in LA to shoot two 911s, very different. It was the Carrera T 991.
Yep.
And Matt Farah's 911 Safari. And both of them had like nylon door pulls.
Oh yeah.
But
that's right.
But both of them worked like completely differently. Because I rode in Matt Farah's Safari, and I got in and out of it a few times, and I rode in I rode and drove the Carrera T because we had it for a few days, and somehow I don't remember the exact specifics, but the way that the nylon door pull was mounted, the part that you pull on, like the tension, like the action was different on both, like very different.
Okay, here's the thing. I can totally see that, because I feel like on the newer car, it's probably a shorter, more precise action that you just pull straight out versus pulling, I don't know, down.
Yeah, I think you pulled in a different direction, and I think it's a little bit more ergonomic on like the newer
Yeah.
one because it's kind of designed to be that way, whereas it's like a retrofit on a 80s car.
Yeah, I'm just imagining like positioning because on the newer one it's high up, where the door handle.
Well,
I guess they're both where the door handles would be.
Yeah,
but-
even so, just an example. I can't remember the exact specifics, but think about a nylon door pull. It's a loop, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that on one of them, so it is a like fix, like so one end is fixed and the other end is sprung, is as a pull. I believe on one of them, like the top was the actual part that gave, and on the other one, the bottom was the part that gave. Like it was that
weird.
different.
Oh, that is weird. Okay. As far as like clever door handles go, the ones in old Volvos I thought were kind of cool. Where, so Volvo interiors of the 80s were very like square and slab-sided. So there was basically a rectangular indentation for the armrest in the door, where your arm would rest, where the power window switches were, etc. So right where your hand would fall, right before the power window switches, is like what looks like it's like the grab handle that you use to pull the door shut. But inside that grab handle was also a like toaster style lever that you would pull back towards yourself to open the door. So it was hidden. You couldn't see the door handle, or you wouldn't even know it was there unless you knew where it was. Kind of like old 911s where it's kind of like seamlessly hidden in the door panel.
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking this up?
Yeah.
Like if you just look up like a 85 740 interior, you'll see like the door. You might even be able to. You may not even be able to see it because it probably just looks like the door handle to close, but it's hidden inside the door handle, so that.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, you just kind of pull back and it opens. I feel like that's a pretty natural motion and a natural place for it to be, because it is located in the same place that you use to close the door.
Mm-hmm.
So you're also using that place to open the door. It's very Swedish in terms of like logic.
Yeah. No, that's a good answer. I don't remember enough inside door handles.
Oh my god.
I know
I
that
guess.
I know that on like McLarens it is all sculpted very well so that it is natural to open it and then open the door in this weird way. You know, like so
Yeah.
there is some cleverness there, but again, it's not something you think about because it's usually a good door handle I think you don't have to think about.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the main tenets of good car design, at least, or usability.
Right.
Good usability design in cars is that simple actions don't require thinking.
Right.
And in that same way, I guess it applies to all the complaints about basic functions being hidden in touchscreens.
Mm-hmm.
But can you think of a car that has, what is the most obscure place for a door handle? Or door release, even. I'm sure there are cars where it is like nowhere you would think it would be. Like it's a button like in the middle of the dash.
I think TVRs were infamous for it being like very hard to find.
Yeah, it's
like very stupid ergonomics.
On the steering column or something.
Yeah. Like I think there was like a door handle on the outside was like on the underside of the mirror or something weird.
Oh yeah. Oh, weird. The ones in old 911s, it's good design in that it's so seamless, but
no one
had,
can find it.
Yeah, no passenger can find it immediately because it looks like a trim piece.
Right.
And if you're unfamiliar, it literally, if you had like, whatever, like let's say you had aluminum door trim that runs alongside your door panel, it is like, it's the same tone, and it's just like a rectangular cutout that is seamless and not called out in any way.
Well, and then also right in the middle of the door panel is the circular lock, like you rotate for the lock, and that has another circle around it. So it's like this bullseye. So people just look at that and they're like touching it and thinking that's how they open the door. That's every time.
Yeah, that is okay. I have to say that's probably one of the weirdest design elements of that car. That is how you unlock the door, is by turning the knob on the side of the door. Because before I ever sat in one, I always thought that was just where a roll window handle would have been if the car didn't have power windows. It was just like a blank. But it just seems like such a large visual amount of real estate for such a, like, what in other cars you just pull on a little like nub to open a top side the door. Here you have like an entire like 4-inch plate or however big it is.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Door locks.
Who needs them?
Who needs them? Have you ever been in a car where the door lock and the door latch failed and it would just like the door flipped open while someone was driving?
I don't think so, no.
That has happened to me at least 2 times, I think, in my life. And once was in high school when I was riding in someone who had it was truly a jalopy. And like he took a slightly hard turn, and I think it was like a Buick. I think it was a Buick Century or something. And he took a hard turn and the driver door flung open, but he just nonchalantly reached out and closed it back as if it were like a normal thing.
Oh, that's funny.
Also, he could take the key out while the car was on.
Oh, yeah. My grandfather's Chevelle was like that.
Yeah. GM quality.
Yeah.
That same friend eventually inherited his dad's Toronado. I think that's how it's pronounced. I don't think I've ever said the name of that car out loud before.
Yeah,
but
I think that's right.
Yeah, it was the 90s one too. So it was the newer one. So it was very sleek.
There was a Toronado in the 90s?
Yeah. It was like the ultimate Oldsmobile coupe.
I thought that was the Cutlass Supreme.
No. You would think with the name Supreme, but no. It was the Toronado. And I think it was built on the same platform as like the Bravada, like the one with the Targa style convertible. Or it wasn't even a Targa, it just had a hoop, I think. Are you looking this up? Did you see it?
Oh yeah, I see the 92.
Yeah. It's like an aero sleek version of all the same coupe that GM was putting out at that time.
Yeah, I think the Cutlass Supreme was better. Like, I think it was a more desirable car.
I don't know. Whenever I think of like Oldsmobile now, I either think of the Aurora or I think of Fargo. Oh yeah, so this is what they made the convertible out of. So you sent me a picture of this is the Cutlass Supreme?
Yeah.
Which actually had a cool front end.
It did. It was, but I think that was a more upscale car. Like, I think that was a higher tier car than that Toronado.
I don't think so. So someone's going to have to correct us on this, but I think the Toronado was like the ultimate Oldsmobile of that
I don't know.
And I think this was the middle management version.
Oh, no. The Toronado looked like very cheap
No. It was relatively premium over the Cutlass Supreme. I think Cutlass Supreme was always meant to be the Everman choice.
Yeah.
We'll have to call it there because we're not gonna Google MSRPs here. Maybe. Or you can just Wikipedia it. I'm sure it will say like this was the flagship model.
I think
before the Borealis.
I think you might be right. The Toronado was personal luxury. It looks terrible.
With a description like that?
Yeah. No,
I just remember sitting in that car, my friend's car, and thinking, this is like very nice for like an Oldsmobile. Although another friend, his dad had like an old 88 like I guess the 90s version, also the same kind of boxy style. And I remember thinking how different that car was because it had like, you remember those cars at that time, they'd have like crushed velvet interiors, but like the seats would be so padded.
Yeah.
Like they were like lazy boys.
Pre-rouged.
Inserted in cars. Yeah. Pre-rouged. It was not good.
I like that design language in the period, and I cannot picture an 88. I can't picture any of these. In that period, I liked the Pontiac design language. I liked those like early Grand
That was better.
Ams. The early Grand Ams, like they were very.
The cladding actually worked.
Well, there wasn't as much, or it was like the car was like actually small, so the cladding wasn't too
like
overbearing.
the Grand Prix. The Grand Am, like they were kind of like decent looking.
Yeah, they were.
And like they always had like really futuristic interiors with like a million buttons.
Yeah.
And then Pontiac just like got stung by a bee. The design language did, and it just went terrible quite quickly after that. Save for the GTO, which wasn't even really.
Well, that was so much later. Too.
Yeah. Well, it didn't get any better for the rest of the lineup.
It did not.
Yeah.
But they did try to pare back the cladding and stuff at the end, but it was too late.
Would you say that the only, and I'm speaking very relatively here, the only redeeming Pontiac from that puffy era, was it the Bonneville SSEI? I'm only saying that because that's the only name I remember.
I would say yeah.
It had like color keyed wheels. It was very sporty looking, even though it was the size of a Park Avenue.
Yeah, I never liked that Firebird. The last, I'm saying like, I'm trying to consider other contenders in the lineup, but it was already a sad lineup by the 90s.
Yeah.
They didn't have a
personal
that
Firebird, the 90s Firebird, where it got rounded slightly,
yeah,
I didn't think that was too bad. And it had the same inset square lights as the Cutlass Supreme that you just showed me. GM, like...
Well, I'm talking about the final generation Firebird.
Yeah. No, that was not good. It was very puffy and claddy. But back to like the headlights briefly. GM designed like that tiny square non-sealed headlight that they would like put in an array of lights.
Yeah.
Like in that,
like the
and
Chiron.
they used it everywhere. Yeah, like in the Chiron. That's what it looks like. And they used it on so many models. And it was actually a good move because it made so many cars look sleeker than they would have otherwise.
Yeah. It's cool that there was like these restrictions and they designed around them and found cool ways to do it.
Yeah. I actually kind of wonder if like those were like tiny sealed beams, or if like there was a bulb, like a removable bulb, or is a lens for a bulb. I didn't see them in any other car, I guess, so maybe not.
So
anyways,
switching gears, I had a really random Tesla question, not related to any Tesla current events at all. But so our friend Drew, Midnight Dory on Twitter, he had a poll this week on Twitter, and it was like, if you choose between a Taycan Turbo and a Tesla Model S, and it was like 90% Taycan, of course.
Yeah.
And for me, I still voted the Taycan. It doesn't matter. But it was like close. It was close.
Yeah.
And so I think after the poll closed, he was like, I really want to talk to the people that like were in that 15% that voted for the Model S. And, just devil's advocate, I could think of why I would choose a Model S. I'm not saying I would, but like, what would your choice be and why?
Okay. So my choice would be the Taycan, obviously. But I say obviously because after every review that you've read of the Taycan, and a lot of people have tried to be very pragmatic about evaluating the car, meaning like, Tesla has, or rather, the Porsche has created this car with all of these like efficiency advancements, yet somehow the car doesn't have its intended range, or it doesn't beat the range of the best car on the market, right? Or the car with the longest range.
All right.
Wait, hang on a second. I do have a point to this. But
I
at the
understand
end of the
what
day,
it is,
and no
and I
one
would
concludes,
like to undercut it before you get to it.
Wait. But no one ever ends the article in this way. But at the end of the day, despite all of this, which car would you still drive home in? And I think if you asked anyone who wrote any of those articles, they'd say the Taycan.
I don't think that's true.
Because here's the thing. If you're buying a premium EV, like you're not just buying it for the range. At the end of the day, if you're going to do that, just buy a Bolt. Like it doesn't make sense if you're doing this for efficiency's sake. You're buying it for an experience. Like a Model S, even if you're not a car person, at one point it was an experience because it was the best EV on the market. But I would assume, and I've driven both Model S now and a Taycan, and the differences are vast as far as personal driving experience goes, or just like the sensations you get from driving it. And maybe it is the noise, which may be amplified just slightly to give you that sensation. The steering's a little bit better, but also like it gives you kind of a sense of occasion too, just like the design and the newness of it and everything. Mm-hmm. So the fact that it has almost 100 miles less range than the best Tesla, I don't think is the reason why you should deny how good it is, because it's not the point. So that's why I choose the Taycan in this situation.
Okay, so I was going to amend the question to say, let's say it's a 2-year lease. So if Tesla is taking liberties with the battery life to deliver more range and stuff, like that's not factoring in the question. I would choose the Taycan just because I'm like a Porsche nerd and stuff, and I do think that, it is.
We're biased,
right? Of course, and the like the connection to history and the dedication they have towards like the handling and driving experience, I find cool. But reasons I could consider the Model S, definitely, if it's not the range, it's the supercharger network. I mean, you can say, oh, range doesn't matter, but when you don't have any alternative to the supercharger network, range is going to matter.
I just think here's the thing, though, about that is that when you're buying this $70,000 to $120,000 car, that your options are not limited. You're not like someone who has this limited budget and you have to have this car and it has to do everything. Maybe in some cases, maybe you live in an urban dense city, like you're in San Francisco and this is your one car and you have to go down to Silicon Valley from the city or something. Okay, I guess I could see that use case, although the Taycan would accomplish that need just as well, I suppose. I don't know. Like, here's the thing is I would agree that like the more range you can squeeze out, the better. I don't know where the threshold is, though, as far as like usefulness goes. As in,
okay, but the supercharger network is useful if you're in California. If you want to drive San Francisco to LA,
yeah, I agree. I agree with that. But I would say like you're in that case, you're using an extreme benefit to cast benefit over the entire idea of the product, meaning that for 75 to, I would say, almost 90% of people who, like their use case for this car, both cars can do the same thing. And I don't think range is everything. Like,
I don't think range is everything. I don't think range is everything.
You make fun of me for
how, you're a bad example because you don't leave your neighborhood. I don't think range is everything, but what I'm saying is range with the supercharger network like is a lot. Like if you don't have the range and you don't have the network.
If you're like a traveling salesman who has to, I just feel like that's not like the end all be all. I think range anxiety, obviously a very real thing, and especially on shorter range EVs, that is especially a sensitive topic because 80 miles that's pretty borderline as far as usefulness goes. But when you're talking about 200-mile plus ranges, I don't know. I think you cross into a certain threshold. Okay, the supercharger network is what you're talking about. You're talking about. Like,
I'm talking about this. Yes.
Daisy chaining yourself into another city.
Yes. Being able to easily find and locate chargers that will just work with your car and give you good things. Like, yes, there are places to charge non-Tesla EVs, but it is
I think it's great. I just think that at the end of the day, that is still just kind of like a more or less a minor point. Like, they've taken I think that was a great marketing exercise, as in, they've taken people's ultimate worries about EVs, range. They've wrapped it around the idea of what the car represents, freedom, and the ability to traverse the nation. And then they have now applied the future to it by adding nationwide networks for you to travel within. But that's fine. But for most people, I don't think that is necessarily an amazing thing, a life-changing thing. I think it's great if you're. You've stated what you wanted to say about supercharger not being important, but you know how many people buy a car based on purely pragmatic reasons? It's probably less than 20%. Everyone buys a pickup truck because they think they're going to go and be Al Borland off-road. People buy a Corvette or a GT3 because they think they're going to be a race car driver. People are not buying a car that they don't think that they can just have this escapism. If you're buying a car that you know that you cannot drive into the next state, that is disappointing. That is why have a car that can't do that can't drive to Oklahoma or whatever. In Texas, it is a very long way to any other state. I would say, okay, unsubstantiated. I'm not saying everyone's going to do that, but I'm saying to know that you can't, that without facing a lot of hassle and annoyance, is that is a hit against the appeal. I'm not saying it's the most important thing, but you have to concede that hurts the appeal when it's I cannot drive to Arizona in this car without doing a lot of research and facing a lot of hardship and it being really annoying. If we can dial it back just a little bit, here's the thing: is that EVs, I think EVs are not the end-all be-all solution for they're not going to be the replacement for ICE cars. I think that they are meant to be the better city and just slightly added the city car. Mm-hmm. And that it's amazing that we have this side benefit that with some of them, you can actually go across city lines, even state lines. But I think that's a fringe benefit. I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is to revolutionize inner city travel, where pollution is, where you get the worst gas mileage. I think that that's the problem you're trying to solve, and that the supercharger network is great, but it is a marketing exercise. It is a fringe benefit. And if you really need to travel, if you're forcing yourself to own a car and you need to travel across cities, I don't know why you're buying an EV anyways. Mm-hmm. I think you're just trying to prove a point when you don't need to. Yeah. Then you just you have two cars. You have your, and I know people who have a Model S and they have they go back from Houston to Austin in it, but they also have a normal car. And I think that's more likely the case in most cities than not. Okay, so you will have, in my hypothetical, why I would choose that Tesla, which again, I am not. I have listed one reason. You have fought me to death on, wrongly. Yes. Another reason would be, I think, if you are doing city driving, urban driving, I think it's going to come mostly down to preference between the two. I think the driving dynamics differences are somewhat minor. Sure. The sportiness of the Taycan doesn't matter when you're just puttering around in traffic. Right. If anything, the more cocooned seating and everything is going to be more annoying if you're running around errands and getting in and out and doing that. But if I might counter with, if you were to get into an accident with let's say, a 2012 Tesla versus a just released Taycan, which car do you think might be easier to get fixed currently?
I'm sure.
I think it would.
Yeah,
it would be the Porsche.
I'm sure it is. Well, even
at the end of the day,
yeah,
you have to give acknowledgement to the fact that Tesla did pave the way for the Taycan to exist, and now a major manufacturer with all of the engineering knowledge, all of the production knowledge, all of the resources, has come in to pick off the baton, however unwillingly Tesla is willing to hand it over.
Yeah. No, this. So
yeah.
The entire time you were saying actually the supercharger network isn't that good. I thought that was not a great argument, but this is very good. I am on board with this, and even if the Taycan is not going to get fixed more quickly, or say they take the same amount of time, at least I have the confidence that Porsche would give me a good loaner car.
Yeah.
And Tesla, I really don't know. I have no idea. I feel like no one would even answer the phone. That's my concern. So that is extremely valid. That even if it took 9 months to repair the Taycan, I'd probably be driving a Macan Turbo or something pretty good for that time, which again, you would not be in an EV, but at least you would know that they care. And they'd be working on it, and they would try to make it right. And I do not get the impression that Tesla would do that.
Yeah, because I feel like Tesla is still filling in some of the blanks as far as the car ownership experience goes. They've focused primarily on engineering and developing a product, but what about when the product is in use and when it fails? Because it's a win and not if situation.
Well, the problem also
what
is
happens?
So much of Tesla is built around we need 5 times the growth in 4 years. So what can we do to be 5 times more profitable? It's we have to be working on all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But so the last reason why maybe a Model S would be more compelling than a Taycan, this doesn't really apply if I'm saying it's a 2-year lease. So let's say you're buying it outright for whatever stupid reason, just for this one stupid argument. I don't know. I think the Taycan will be replaced by better things, more interesting things. And I don't know, the current Model S might still be new for 6 more years or something. And maybe that's an appeal to someone that it will be this timeless thing, whereas the Taycan's going to be an old PC in 3 years.
I would actually, that's a good point, but I almost, because the Model S is essentially, it's a piece of tech.
But they both are, and the Tesla, maybe the Tesla will be iconic if they're still selling the same one. It will be I guess it's more vain to say you'll still have the new one, but if they're still selling the same thing in 5 or 6 years, you will still have this package. Whereas the Taycan might get an update in 2 years, and then a redesign, and then in 5 years, it's the first ones are oh, those were a joke compared to the ones now.
I would almost see that eventually Tesla just fades the Model S out and upmarkets the smaller cars, because those, despite having similar underpinnings, are viewed as new and fresh.
Yeah.
And the Model S, you can only refresh it so often. In fact, it's only gone through one facelift.
One major refresh. I know they do lots of little things and software and interior stuff.
Yeah. So mentally, perhaps even if it is still a viable product, maybe they shift money and production efforts into upmarketing the Model 3, the Model X, the Model Y. I mean, we're living in the age of CUVs, SUVs, so...
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe that's where they put the money instead of in the declining sedan market.
Or if they develop... Because I feel like the Model X has not taken off like as like a luxury Range Rover alternative. Whereas the Model S is like a very compelling S-Class alternative.
Yeah. I wonder, the Model X is such a weird proposition. I mean, it's a premium CUV, SUV thing, but it's not very good looking. It's not timeless. I actually do think that the Model S is kind of timeless.
Yeah.
Like, I look at the 2012 car that's going on 8 years now. I think it looks pretty good still.
It does.
It's a very inoffensive design. It was almost ahead of its time in a way.
I think inoffensive, you are undermining it. I think it was a very good design, like very broad-shouldered and like muscular in ways.
Well, I was about to say, like, it was of the first like big four-door coupe designs, which even though we cringe just slightly at the notion of calling all things coupes now just because they have 4 doors, or just because they have a certain rake to the rear, I think the Model S is almost more like a 4-door coupe than it is a sedan, because it's so rakish in the back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the concept of the Model S and the production Panamera does like debuted in the same year, I believe.
Yeah.
And one of them was much more successful design-wise, and it was not the Panamera.
I would agree.
I mean, they both set out. We're talking purely visually. They both set out to do the same thing: and be a large, executive, sleek-looking car.
I would say though, and I don't mean to say that like unoffensive is downplaying anything. I think unoffensive, to me at least, means more chances for timelessness. Like as in 10 years, it'll still be viewed kindly.
Because I hear unoffensive and I'm hearing like they didn't take any chances, which I don't think is true.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say that. I would say chances. Well, okay, what do you consider chances on that car though? Like, I wouldn't say that it was a bold or daring design. I think like they took they took like Audi-esque like steps as far as design goes, because Audis, I wouldn't have one, but I do think that the designs I don't know, 2012? I don't know what year to peg it at, but there was a time when their design language was just so unoffensive, meaning that it looks just as good then as it does now.
Yeah.
I was sending you...
Right, I think 2013 or 12 was like the end of that, yes.
Yeah, when they started getting creases and aggressive.
Right, well, so I think I think looking at the Model S, there's 2 ways. I'm not going to say there's like giant risks everywhere. I think the detailing, the surface, like the shape of the headlights and all that stuff, that's one thing. But the form of it, like the shape of the body, the way that it is sculpted, I think was pretty revolutionary. I mean, it was more like an Aston Martin than it was like a 7 Series or an S-Class.
Yeah.
You know, and I think bringing
I'm going to asterisk that because I don't think the face was particularly good looking.
I'm not talking about the face. I'm talking about the form of the entire, like the shape of the body was revolutionary for a full-size luxury sedan. And the way that it pulled it off, which the Panamera shows us is not easy to make like a sports car big.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, now the Panamera has the same shape and the A7 has the same shape, and anything that is a 4-door coupe essentially has the same shape now.
I mean, the CLS did not have that shape.
No, the CLS, you're correct in that. I would say then a coupe with a hatch.
But still, the rear like haunches on, you know, like
it was good. It was good.
It's very pronounced on the Model S. Like it's maybe an A7 has that now.
Acknowledgements are given to what it was when it came out. Now what's next? I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's that. But if you want to talk about like an EV with like daring design, and it could have gone anyway. This may or may not be a hot take, but I think the ELR was bold and daring.
Yeah.
It did not sell.
No.
I see one on occasion. Some guy in my neighborhood has one, and that's the only one that I ever see on the road.
I have driven one.
Oh.
And it's a neat car. The seat was so tall. I didn't like that. Like the seat was really tall. Like there was no headroom at all because of the amount the sunroof intruded and how high the seat was. But it's a nice car. Like it's like a very very plush Golf, or not Golf, Volt.
Yeah.
Volt.
Yeah. It looks like a stubbier CTS of that era, coupe. Of that era,
and that
is
CTS,
also
that was a
cool car.
Great design.
Yeah. So I would say, and that was following more company design language than trying to be a revolutionary groundbreaking EV thing. But
right.
But that was also like a really weird time when manufacturers were trying to enter the electrified luxury thing, because that was the HS250H era. It was where we had all of these hybrids hybrids for the most part, because I guess the Bolt was technically, or not the Bolt, the ELR.
The ELR and the Volt was a plug-in hybrid. It was pretty revolutionary.
It was a plug-in hybrid.
Keep in mind that
it was a series hybrid.
It had an electric-only range of 40 miles, which was 4 times that of the Prius plug-in up until what now?
Yeah. Well, Toyota's always had like such a measured approach to EVs. Right.
But I mean, the Volt was revolutionary.
Oh yeah, totally.
And the ELR rode on those piggybacks by being worse than the Volt.
Well, it was the Corvette versus XLR thing again,
where the more expensive one is worse.
Yeah, the more expensive one is somehow just remarkably worse.
More compromised.
To the point to where if you break a taillight, you total the car.
Yeah. Well, the XLR also they had to use their North Star engine, so it's not as good and whatever and etc.
Yeah.
But it's compromised to a fault, and they found out luxury and EV is very hard because luxury adds weight, the enemy of electric. Blah, blah.
Well, and Toyota, who was the master of all of that, found that also the hard way with the HS250H, in that they thought they'd capitalize on the popularity with, regardless of economic situation, people wanted a Prius. So that must mean if you took essentially a Corolla, it was actually the Toyota Avensis in Japan, but basically a big Corolla, and add weight and leather and sound deadening to it, that it'll fly off the shelves, and it didn't.
I mean, I wonder, I would love to see a design study of what was rejected to make the HS250H. I think that would have been more successful if it was closer to a Prius.
Oh yeah, totally. I always thought that too when that car came out.
I wonder what it would have been like if it was, I'm not going to say a rebadged Prius, but if you kept the roof line, if you kept some aspects of the design but made it better.
Somehow missed the mark. They developed the mark and then they missed it, in that the reason why the Prius was successful was because it looked so radical and different. And then they released a premium version of that looked just like a compact sedan.
It looked like the cheapest Lexus you've ever seen in your life.
They just completely, they should have made it so weird looking. Even if it wasn't based on the Prius, they should have just made it weird. I don't know what, an Aztec Lexus of some kind. I think it would have actually done better. But
or the Mirai or the Prius Prime, if we look at what they have currently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. People are still into it. The Prius Prime is weird looking.
I think the Prius Prime looks awesome.
People like it. Yeah. Anyways, I think that we might be coming up on a podcast here.
Even after I cut out all of this?
I think that my timer says an hour 13. Well, I think we've got a podcast.
Yeah, we could call it that.
I guess. Do follow us on Instagram at New496.
And Twitter.
Twitter,
apparently. Same thing.
also at New496, same content.
Yeah.
And email us, I guess if that's your thing, at new496@aol.com. But actually Gmail.
Yeah, spelled out.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.